What's up, guys? It's your boy Pat, and so we're going to talk about the difference between hermeneutics, exegesis, and eisegesis. First and foremost, when I was learning these, I realized that I knew them, but I just kept getting so confused. And I know that some of y'all might be doing the same thing. So I'm hoping that we can explain this in such a way that you're going to get it. And so therefore it'll be really simple. First is hermeneutics. And that's basically the study of the interpretation of language, whether written or spoken. Generally, hermeneutics is basically it's the activity that interests biblical scholars, and is sometimes used in philosophy as well. So basically, when you're looking at the interpretation of language, whether written or spoken, you're getting the dates, you're getting the Hebrew times, you're getting all that stuff, all the knowledge stuff of what you're reading. That's hermeneutics. And some examples of where you would get hermeneutics from is just concordances, schools, and commentaries. That's the hermeneutics of all those things. So that's an easy way to think of hermeneutics. When you're thinking of hermeneutics, you're just thinking of the interpretation of language, whether written or spoken. Basically, the history and the science and the scholarly approach to looking at this stuff. Now, when we look at exegesis and eisegesis, first off, those are just very fun words to say. But exegesis is the definition of it is the critical explanation or interpretation of a text, especially in scripture. Put simply, it's the process of discovering the original and intended meaning of a passage of scripture. So the way that I think of exegesis is I think of ex like the text. That is what the text said, and I'm discovering I'm finding what the text meant. I'm finding out meanings and interpretations from the text. It's not my opinion or what I think the text said, is what the text said that I'm interpreting. So an example of that would be Philippians 4:13. That's a text that is completely sometimes used wrong because people interpret it differently. But from the text, I can do all things through Christ that gives me strength. It is from Paul when he was writing his letter to the Philippians, and that is not a Bible verse about strength, but it is a verse about contentment. He was writing from a jail and talking about, I don't know if whether I shall live or shall I die. I want to die and be with Jesus. However, I know that if it's more use for me to be here with you, I will be here with you. Either way, I'm content. I'm content on where I want to be. And that is what the text reads. That's what the text means. When you look at the text, you look at the commentaries, and it explains where was Paul when this was happening. What does he mean when he's talking about, I love you. I thank God for you. What is all this stuff happening in the passage to get me to that conclusion? Eisegesis is what I interpret. So exegesis, X like text, eisegesis like I. Eisegesis is the interpretation of a text as of the Bible on one's own idea. So eisegesis. So let's go back to that Philippians 4:13 one. So when people hear I can do all things through Christ that gives me strength, they normally say, oh, it's the verse about strength is you can do anything, because that's how I interpret it. I'm not reading from I'm reading from I. Normally in eisegesis, and again, it's just to make it very clear, Philippians 4:13 is about content. It's not the powerlifting verse that so many people have thought about. But anyway, that's the easy way to see it. How do I interpret that scripture? Normally you'll see exegesis in a lot of in different preaching. But in eisegesis, you see a lot more of that in topical, where they're coming up with those one-liners, or they're coming up with just those things of how they interpret scripture. So to go over it, hermeneutics is basically the interpretation of language. It is the educational part of discovering that stuff. Eisegesis is I, and exegesis is X like the text. Glad I was able to help.